Uh, how are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? I hope everyone's okay out there. We are on Wednesday, March 25th, 2020, and we continue our experience of online learning. So today it was suggested by 12th grader Joanna Lugo, thank you, Joanna, that we not just see depressing news about the coronavirus. And I don't know. I'm a researcher. I want to know. I want to know. I want to be real. I want to look into the darkness, understand the darkness, so I can keep the darkness at bay. But I appreciated her spirit. We do need to know about the progress being made against the pandemic. So we're going to go over some kind of what I would say good news. And I'm going to start sprinkling good news in more on the daily because I like Joanna's spirit. We can't just be dogged down with the dark reality of this weird thing that's disrupted all of our lives. So the first thing we're going to cover is a coronavirus vaccine has gotten to the stage where human testing is going to begin. This is a way to inoculate ourselves against COVID-19 to where this isn't going to be a problem anymore, just sort of like a flu vaccine. We're going to look at how scientists have actually established that the coronavirus itself, the mutation rate is limited, which basically guarantees the utility of the vaccine for a long time. When a pathogen changes, mutates, then the vaccine no longer applies to that virus. Moving into the third one, we're going to talk about how Wuhan, China, you guys read about Wuhan in reference to the wet markets where this entire virus was created, it began. They are now coming out of quarantine. Their lockdown after 2 months is done. Finally, late last night, like 12 a.m., it was announced that Washington politicians, the Republicans, the Democrats came together and they approved the economic stimulus package. So checks are coming to families across the United States. So let's get into it. First thing I want to talk about is from The Guardian and their essential question, when will the coronavirus be ready? Human trials will begin imminently, but even if they go well and a cure is found, there are many barriers before global immunization is feasible. So they're going to kind of talk about the reality here of testing medical vaccinations. That's a little too much belly, right? This is fascinating to me. 35 companies and academic institutions are racing to create such a vaccine, at least 4 of which already have candidates that have been testing in animals. The first of these, produced by Boston-based biotech firm Moderna, will enter human trials imminently. Let's just click on this. They link to time.com, so essentially just another periodical. This vaccine was created just 42 days after the genetic sequence of COVID-19 virus called SARS-CoV-2 was released by Chinese researchers. It was developed in record time because it's based on a relatively new genetic method that does not require growing huge amounts of the virus. That's interesting. Thank you, Time. Thank you, Time Magazine. Little more specific information offered by Time. Looks like The Guardian's kind of examining the whole process of rolling out a vaccine into a public context. All vaccines work according to the same principle. They present part of the pathogen to the human immune system, usually in the form of an injection at a low dose, to prompt the system to produce antibodies. And this is actually why COVID-19 is particularly problematic, because it's a novel virus. You've heard of that phrase with all this, the novel COVID-19. It means it's new. None of us have antibodies unless we've been exposed to it and recovered. Clinical trials usually take 3 phases. The first involves a few dozen healthy volunteers. The second involves several hundred people, usually in part of the world affected by the disease. And the third does the same in several thousand people. Got you. So this is just sort of insight into the various phases they have to go through to actually get this immunization out to a large part of the globe. Take a look. This is exciting. This is the progress and how to stop this from happening anymore. Let's look at what the Washington Post has to say about a little more about the science here. The coronavirus isn't mutating quickly, suggesting a vaccine would offer lasting protection. The coronavirus is not mutating significantly as it circulates through the human population. The relative stability suggests the virus is less likely to become more or less dangerous as it spreads. All viruses evolve, accumulating mutations. The virus that causes the disease is similar to the coronavirus that circulates naturally in bats. It jumped into the human species last year in Wuhan, China. There's a relatively small amount of mutations for having passed through a large number of people. At this point, the mutation rate of the virus would suggest that the vaccine developed for SARS-CoV-2 would be a single vaccine rather than a new vaccine every year like the flu vaccine. And that's true. The influenza virus changes so consistently that they have to update it. It sounds like coronavirus is more stable. Okay. Well, that's cool news. That's great news. When they do create this vaccine, it's going to be more stable ultimately. All right, let's go into some NPR land. Coronavirus live updates. They're talking about how China's Wuhan prepares to emerge from lockdown as new cases dwindle. They've reached their peak, and now they're dropping. China's Hubei province is preparing to emerge from a 2-month lockdown that was prompted by tens of thousands of COVID-19 cases. In recent days, the province and its capital city in Wuhan have reported a dwindling number of new coronavirus cases. Starting Wednesday, residents of other cities in the same province as Wuhan will be able to leave. The city of Wuhan, where nearly 2/3 of all the cases in China occurred, will let people leave 2 weeks later. The Wuhan lockdown sealed in ill patients, overwhelming hospitals. The city's former mayor said at least 5 million residents left the city before the lockdown, spreading the virus nationally and globally. Only one new case was reported on Monday. While the strict limits on travel are slated to be lifted, schools and colleges will remain shut down. Probably has to do with just schools being so packed with close proximity humans. I mean, you guys used to sit in these desks. Think how close you were. Wuhan was sealed off from the outside world on January 23rd when public health authorities said they were in a state of war against the deadly new corona. So, light at the end of this tunnel, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to go through the darkness to get into the light again. You got to go through the fire. It's heavy, but it's nice to see that the place where this all began is starting to see the other side of this tunnel. Now, let's finally talk about something that's going to affect your families, each and every one of you guys. So yesterday, late last night, Congress agreed on a $2 trillion virus rescue bill. You want to think about it like an economic stimulus. The stock market has just plummeted since we started doing shelter-in-place protocols across the United States. The White House and Senate leaders of both parties announced Wednesday an unprecedented emergency legislation to rush sweeping aid to business workers. Dang it, I reached my article limit. Here. You know what you do there, ladies and gentlemen? You just find the same information from a different source. Here. And I guess I'm going to freaking pay for San Francisco Chronicle. They do good stuff. Let's go AP News. This is the largest economic rescue bill in history. That's Mitch McConnell. It's got a face. The package is intended as a weeks-long or months-long patch for an economy spiraling into recession. Underscoring the effort's sheer magnitude, the bill finances a response with a price tag that equals half the size of the entire $4 trillion annual federal budget. Whew. It's a big one. The bill will provide a one-time direct payment to Americans of $1,200 per adult making up to 75 grand a year, and $2,400 to a married couple making up to 150,000 with $500 payments per child. So this applies to a lot of wildcats. Your family will get cash in the pocket because of this bill. The government is recognizing that this shutdown has severely affected the ability to work, the ability to be successful. So, for those of you that are comfortable, that are able to work, this is cash to kind of bolster the savings account, help pay off debt. For those of you that are in dire straits because you're out of work, this will help you pay those bills. This is our politicians doing what they need to do. They got together. They had to come to a consensus regarding what was the best choice, and now Americans are going to be supported. So I'm happy about this. And Joanna, I like your spirit. This was good news. All in all, this was a better set of information, and I'm going to balance each day with a little more sense of good news. So thank you, Joanna, for expressing where you were coming from, and I hope everyone stays strong. Call me, email me if you guys have any questions. Thank you. Have a good day.